Russia compete with us, other adversaries on the technological front, but China's different. We're the largest economy in the world. China's the second largest. Russia's economy is about the size of my home state of Texas. So they have to choose where they're going to compete, where China competes with us across the board. So, and we've seen, to use your examples of things that are important, if China gets a technological advantage of us, and I'll just use 5G as an example, the problems that Huawei created in that space, that's a real problem. We can't let that happen. So when we talk about things now like frontier AI models and the fact that Western technology is ahead, we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of that. And from the CIA's perspective, that means that we have to have the ability to make sure that we're deploying that and our officers are able to use that. And so the focus of things like, I elevated cyber to a mission center for the first time, created the Directorate of Mission Systems so that we changed our entire information technology architecture so that we can onboard all of these technologies and be in a place where our officers are always at the leading cutting edge. And so I'll just say this. Over the last 18 months, you've seen things where the CIA's involvement and contributions to America's success. Operation Midnight Hammer, where we got so flawless intelligence operations, everyone here knows, I think, only happen if you have a flawless intelligence picture to support that. So getting 120 planes in and out of Iran on Operation Midnight Hammer to precisely deliver, on Iranian nuclear facilities without the Iranians even being able to respond, or getting 200 special operators into the largest military compound in Venezuela, fast ropes down from helicopters onto Maduro, apprehension in 3.5 minutes. Those kinds of things, what I would say, in Operation Epic Fury, our CIA's role in the recovery of Dude 44 Bravo, our downed F-15 Strike Eagle pilot, in all of those cases, Dan, that success was because we deployed cutting edge technologies better than our adversaries to accomplish what we needed to. And that has to continue. And so that's why that will continue to be our priority.
And a big focus of these 2 days here at the Army War College is on partnerships between private sector and public sector. In the case of our national security infrastructure, partnership between the business community and our national security infrastructure, partnerships with the academic community, the research institutions. How does that fit into what you're talking about?
Well, so if people remember my confirmation hearing, at the time, something very significant had happened shortly before, and I talked about it. I said, the United States is the only country in the world that can parallel park a 200-foot rocket booster. And we can only do that with partnerships with companies, in that case, like SpaceX. But what I found when I came in as CIA director is, well, we've had those kinds of successes before. It was very ad hoc. So the first thing I did was create an Office of Corporate Partnerships so that there is a single point of access, so that it's not an ad hoc approach to this. We are proactively looking for the kinds of partnerships that can deliver those kinds of success. The other thing that we needed to do in order to take advantage of the partnerships both in business and academia and across the board was, with regard to these technologies, to get it on, and as I talked about before, deploying for our officers. So when I got there, our acquisition process was 24 months for an enterprise-wide, on average, acquisition process, followed by 9 months of a security assessment. Listen, 3 years to onboard technology. By the time you onboard it, it's outdated. So by changing our entire acquisition framework and our procurement, adding a procurement executive, in the last 6 months, we've onboarded 400 enterprise-wide, 400 acquisitions in 6 months, something that before would have taken years. So it's got to move. We've got to move at the speed of business and technology in order to continue to succeed, and that's those kinds of partnerships are important to do that.
You are also dealing with a moment in which you're director of CIA, during a moment in which the rules of conflict, as we've known them, are being completely rewritten, and the kind of threats we are facing are, like as we talked about earlier, just unprecedented. So how do you think about that in terms of how you spend your day, in terms of what you're focusing on?
So across the board on all the, AI, quantum, biotech, cyber, it is rewriting the rules across the board. Economically, economies are changing because of that. And as you talk about in terms of conflict. So, take for instance, AI. When we talk about AI-powered robots and drones, the impact that they have, for instance, on the exponential efficiency of scaled manufacturing, that's one thing. But as you intimated, on the battlefield, the impact is even more profound. So what I will say is our intelligence is consistent with some of the open source reporting you may have seen in Ukraine. So the average life expectancy of a Russian recruit right now arriving on the battlefield in Ukraine is estimated to be between 20 and 30 minutes. 20 and 30 minutes. And that's because AI-powered drones have gotten to be such specialized, low-cost killing machines, and it's why we're now 4.5 years into that conflict, and the takeaway is the mastery of technology and these emerging technologies is every bit as important as military strength, and so it's why an inferior force 4.5 years later has held off the superior force of Russia against Ukraine. And even more telling with respect to that is if you look, the advancements that Russia made into Ukraine initially, right now Russia occupies 20% of Ukraine. When I came in as CIA director 18 months ago, Russia occupied 19% of Ukraine. So the pace of their advance has stopped as Ukraine's mastery of emerging technologies, in this case, drone warfare, asymmetric warfare, is such a great equalizer and shows why we have to be leading on this in all respects, for us to maintain our place in the global marketplace.
So that makes me, think about the talent pipeline, because it just seems like the kind of talent that agencies like the CIA have tried to attract throughout its history is probably a little different now. Meaning you still need the same expertise that you and professionals that the CIA has historically needed, but it's in this technology arms race. And by the way, there are large technology companies, as we've heard about this morning, that are also doing everything to attract the best and the brightest talent. And so how do you think about the kind of talent the CIA wants, given everything you just said? Because it seems like perhaps it's a different mix of people.
Yeah. So CIA has the same advantage that I think we've got all of these great business leaders out here, and that our country has. I mean, the biggest advantage when we talk about talent is the founding and foundational principles of the democratic principles of the country in which we live. So I've talked a little bit about China as an adversary. We are so fortunate. We're in a country where we are in a system where our success for 250 years now is really premised on the fact that from our beginning, Americans have been able to go as high and as far as their own hard work, determination, and ability have carried them. That is gives us an advantage over a system like China, where that is not the case, and where you go where the state tells you to go, you do what the state tells you to do, and what incentive is there for innovation if you're not going to be rewarded for it? And it's why the Chinese model is really rob, replicate, and replace. The ingenuity and innovation that Western technology and Western companies develop, and then the state, and they're very good at it. They steal it, they replicate it, the state subsidizes it, and that's their model of success. And so what I would say from my standpoint at CIA and my approach is, and it's always been this way, whatever organization, I think this applies to whatever organization or company you're privileged to lead, is we can't lose that advantage. The only way we keep it is don't get caught up in political correctness. The CIA is being run, my workforce hears about this all the time, is we are a meritocracy. You will go as high and as far as your own hard work, determination, and abilities will carry you. There are no limits on your success. And success is the best recruiter. Success it's why, you know, even in the time that I've been here, our recruiting numbers are off the charts. When people see, we talked about success in things like, you know, Operation Absolute Resolve, Operation Midnight Hammer, and the very, you know, public role that the CIA has played in a number of those things, people want to be a part of that. And so it hasn't been difficult, you know, to recruit talent when they know that they're going to be rewarded for their hard work and they're going to be able to do everything that they can. And that's why, you know, this applies to the CIA, but it applies across the board in this country. It's one advantage that we have. It's why everyone still wants to come to the United States, because those principles that everyone, you know, can do those things and have that kind of limitless success. And that's where innovation, ingenuity, creativity, and, you know, why we lead in all of these things that have always had these successes, why everyone wants to come here, and why our adversaries want to steal what we have. So that's really been the focus. And you know, we're open for business at the CIA. So you know, we're always looking for talent.
So if there's anyone in this room that is, you know, you know where to find them. Director Ratcliffe, thank you for doing this. Thank you for an illuminating conversation, as always, and Godspeed with the important work that you do.
Thank you all.